done in Pulaski. And of course, in '64, that race in November was between Howard Baker, who ran later, 2 years later, actually defeated Frank Clement in the race for U.S. Senate. But I voted 2 United States senators, both Ross Vest and Albert Gore Sr. And I mention these for a reason. I'll explain that in a moment as I get further into my comments. At that same time, I voted for a fellow named P.G. Crooks. He was a Democrat from Ventures County, was the state representative. 2 years later, he ran for the county judge and actually won that seat. Then I voted for Albert Gore, who lost the race in 1970, and voted for Lyndon B. Johnson for president. Now, why do I mention those things? Let me go back to the 14th Amendment. Tennessee was the first state in my understanding to actually ratify the 14th Amendment, where everyone who had fought in the Civil War on the South could actually vote legally without denouncing their allegiance, which had been to the Confederacy. My great-great-grandfather's name was John Kiefer Davis. I have a brother today whose name Kiefer Davis was captured at the Battle of Stones River and taken as a Confederate soldier in medicine and taken up north to Illinois to Indiana, and then after the war was allowed to return back to Tennessee where he practiced medicine. So in essence, the first thing Tennessee did was to enable folks to start voting again, to enhance their opportunity to vote again. And then the second thing that actually happened, I think that we could talk about, was in 1920. There was a young gentleman from up in around the area of Kingston and Loudoun County, the name of Burns, state representative, a Republican member of the state house. 34 individuals, including that young Republican, that decided they were not going to vote for women's suffrage, the 19th Amendment in 1920 in August. And as a result of his mother finding out about this, she sent him a telegram and said, "You've been raised right to do the right thing, and you must do the right thing today." And so A, B, alphabetical order, when his name came up at B, he voted yes, which meant there were not going to be 34 opposed to it, only 33, and 66 is what it took to ratify. Tennessee ratified women's right to vote, because before that time in federal elections, they were not allowed to vote. And then something else I'm pretty proud of. In the mid-60s, in 64 and 65, Tennessee Democrats and Republicans, I presume, but at least Tennesseans in the U.S. House and Senate voted for both the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights legislation. I mentioned Albert Gore a moment ago. Some folks say that's one of the reasons he may have lost to Bill Brock in 1970. I don't know that that's the case, but I know as growing up and hearing those, having voted 6 years earlier, that was part of the mix of why he actually lost the race in 1970. And then in 1991, to be sure that we enhance the opportunity for folks to vote, to make it easier for people to vote in Tennessee, we gave 20 days before the election to vote for the next 15 days, with the exception of Sunday, where we all go to church. And so there was an effort to enhance and to be sure that everyone who's working, older folks who might not get to the polls on that one-day election day, where it was raining, wanted to be sure that we gave Tennesseans an opportunity, every opportunity they could, to be sure to vote. And what's happened now? We're seeing what I believe an attack on individuals' opportunity to be able to vote. My mother's one of those. She's 89 years old. She will be April the 14th. And does not know, even though I've told her a couple of times, does not believe that this state would require her to have a photo ID before she goes and votes. She's voted for Pall Mall Precinct every time that she voted, starting back right after 1920. When she was allowed to vote, she obviously wouldn't have been able to vote then. She was born in 1926, but I'm just saying, after that was an opportunity, she's voted every time since then. I go to the polls on Tuesday afternoon about 6 o'clock. While I'm traveling from Crossville, Tennessee, where I'm doing some work, volunteer, my wife calls me and says, "Are you going to vote? We've never missed a time." And I said, "Absolutely, I'm going to vote." And so I said, "I'll meet you." She said, "I don't want to have to drive to Jamestown." I said, "No, we can drive down to Pall Mall. It's real close to home, and we'll just vote." So I arrive about 2 or 3 minutes before she does, give her my voter ID. My wife is presenting hers, and for 10 to 15 minutes, we're having a conversation about they can find Diamond Davis, my uncle. They find others, but they can't find my name or her name. And a young fellow, probably in his mid-20s, is making phone calls, and then ultimately he says, "We've determined that you have been purged from the vote, from the rolls in Ventures County, and have been registered to vote in Pickett County only." I don't think there was malicious intent. I don't think anyone meant to harm me. I think there was a mistake. Obviously a mistake, not thinking there was a mistake that was made. But if we're talking about a person's right to vote, those mistakes should not be allowed to be made. 70,000 other people in this state have been taken from the rolls, purged from the rolls in Tennessee, and if they were purged like I was, they have not been notified. And so therefore, if they have not been notified, how do they know that they've been purged? Obviously because of my historical voting patterns in this statewide primary, I went to vote because I wanted to keep my record pure so I could tell my grandchildren, you have to vote. That's what your grandfather always did. It's your civic responsibility and your civic duty. For the first time in my life, I was denied the right to vote this past Tuesday at my home precinct where I live, within 300 yards of Sergeant York's home and within less than 50 yards of where I went to elementary school. For the first time, I was denied the right to vote. Now, that doesn't make me angry. As a matter of fact, I left from there really numb and cold, thinking, I can't believe this happened. And then I started calling and finding out that actually what had happened is that the Pickett County folks, all of which I know, had decided since I was registered to vote in the city elections, they misinterpreted I was registered to vote as in the general elections, even though I had sent back a form on the bottom of it saying I only vote in the local city elections where I used to be mayor, and my neighbors were running for office and I wanted to vote for them. I didn't put that on there, but I'm just saying that's why I was voting there. I'd been registered in Fentress County since 1995, and I'd always voted there since then. And so the assumption was, I guess, that I had dual restoration, so therefore they would take me off of the Pickett County, Fentress County list and put me in Pickett, even though I have 6 automobiles registered, own some of them over 60 years old, that I have a $25 fee I have to pay to keep my license plate, 6 of those. If I was in Pickett County, I would not be paying that because we don't have a special license plate fee. So that kind of gives you the detail of what happened. And since that occurred, I realized and have done some research and realized that there are 70,000 people in this state that will be or have been denied the right to vote unless that changes. So this class action suit, and I'll let the legal counsel describe it. The class action suit does not ask for a monetary gain for me, nor for attorneys, nor would I allow that. I'll pull out the suit if that would become the case. All it asks is that courts look at this, and what I hope will happen is that the election commissioner in Tennessee will be notified that he should, and my hope, this is what I hope will happen, that all 70,000 of those folks should be reconsidered again, placed back on the rolls, and then go through the process that they choose to purge those voters again. That's all I'm asking for. Any questions?